to work out when we should have enough processing to be able to do that. Yes?
Can I ask about the neocortical columns?
Oh yeah, sure.
Are they replicated across the entire cortex? Or
Yeah, so the...
Do you see the same structures in, say, the occipital region and...
I'm not certain if it's exactly the same, but basically the neocortex is... Cortex means bark in Latin, and it's the outer surface of the brain. So if you see a brain in a jar, and you see all the crinkly surface, it's crinkly in order to maximise the surface area of it. And basically what you get is these neocortical columns that are stacked like this, and then arranged in a net, sort of like a net. It literally is a neural network, all across the brain. And they do seem to be similar, I believe, from one part to the next. But somebody that's actually a neuroscientist would probably say, oh, that's not a very good explanation, Tom, and could tell you better. As I say, I'm a neuropsychologist, I'm not a neuroscientist, so I can't answer that truly properly. But my understanding is that they are similar from one part to the next, and effectively just specialise in different sorts of processing, probably due to their proximity to other neurons. So an area that's important for reading is next to Wernicke's area and the visual cortex, which if you think about it makes sense, because you've got to take visual inputs and turn it into language inputs. So it makes sense that the reading areas would be between those two. That makes sense? I've sort of gone on a little bit there. Anyway, Henry Markham has done this with his team, and the Blue Brain Project is absolutely brilliant. So I just want to say I don't want to rubbish the Blue Brain Project. When they say they think they can make a human brain in 10 years, I think that they're exaggerating quite a bit. And I'll show you why, because I looked at it mathematically. What I said is it's now 2010, and the Blue Gene supercomputer that they use can model 10 to the power 5 neurons, right? So for the sake of argument, let's say that that amount of computing power is 1, okay? Now if we're getting a doubling in processing speed every 18 months, that's equivalent to a quadrupling every 3 years. Sorry, did I say 18 months? Yeah. So every 3 years, we should have roughly quadruple the amount of computing power that we had 3 years prior. So that should mean in 2013, all of our various machines and stuff that we're using, if we've actually upgraded them, should have approximately 4 times as much processing power. This is the idea of Moore's law anyway. And then from that, you can infer how many neurons you might be able to model. So this is the thing. They've modelled 100,000 neurons, but the human brain has 100 billion neurons, which is 10 to the power 11. Right? So extrapolating using Moore's law is a very simple calculation. I just dumped it into Google. I didn't even do the maths, into Excel. I didn't even do the maths, I just let Excel do it for me. Using Moore's law, you'd need, 1 million times the processing that we've currently got. And if Moore's law holds until 2040, that's when we'll have 1 million times the processing, which should be enough to model 100 billion neurons at the level of detail that the Blue Brain Project have done. And just to say 2 things in their favour. One is they might be able to optimise the model of them a lot better than they are at the moment. So they might gain a reduction in processing from that. The other thing is that the computer they're using at the moment, whilst it is a supercomputer, it isn't the fastest supercomputer on the planet at the moment. So maybe when it gets to the point that we're approaching it, we could model a human brain, more money will be put into it, and some of the fastest supercomputers we've got will be used to try and model it. But basically, when they say 10 years, what are we, 2020? You know, roughly 60 times the processing of what we've got now. I mean, that's amazing. Imagine these things being 60 times more powerful. But it's not enough to model a human brain, even on the supercomputer that they've got. So I think that whilst I don't see any reason in principle why we can't model a human brain, just the complexity of it suggests to me it's a lot further off than perhaps some people think.
I guess we should look at the talk and see what his answer to that is, because I'm sure this calculation is straightforward. I imagine I think they're expected to use more of the resources of that computer, so it's not just one.
Yeah, I think that they'll be able to optimise their model. The computer that they've got, which they're using at the moment, isn't the fastest supercomputer we've got. So you can knock some amount of years off.
But are they using 100% of that computer currently?
I don't know.
I imagine they're thinking of putting more memory in and...
yeah, sure.
Look up virtualization in cloud computing, because it may well be one virtual computer spread.
Oh, I see. So you could get the internet to do it. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, like there are a bunch of protein folding experiments being done that way. Yeah?
Quickly, the basis of your Excel spreadsheet is what you're talking about, exponential increase.
Yeah, yeah.
But in fact, the technology of computing is increasing at a double exponential rate. So if you
What do you mean by double exponential?
it's like double. It's not like 2 to the power x. It's like 2 to the power x to the x. That is the rate at which it's.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
You'll see a logarithmic graph. The exponential goes straight, but it's actually curving upwards.
Right.
So that's what a double exponential is.
Yeah,
so
I see what you're saying.
If you put the figures in as a double exponential, you may get further closer to the.
Well, I mean, that's extrapolating from Moore's law that processing is doubling once every 18 months, which is equivalent to quadrupling
It's about every
once
year.
every 4 years. Now, that's not my understanding of Moore's law.
It varies in how people look at it.
Yeah.
Nick, you had a question?
I was just going to say something quite similar, that actually Moore's law is related to the number of transistors originally.
Yeah, number of transistors, which isn't quite the same as processing speed.
But,
yes,
but
quite.
not only that, it's exactly that. If you, like the latest, or the 5th fastest supercomputer right now is being built in China.
Yeah.
And it's really commodity hardware, it's all around scaling horizontally, these huge machines. So if you just have
so more and more
distributed,
processors rather than
double
faster
the
and
number
faster
of
ones.
standard stuff, you get double the speed. So
Yeah, I should say that this prediction would be for a similar equivalent cost of supercomputer in that time. So you could spend $1 billion on it, get a much more powerful supercomputer, 1,000 times more processors, and have 1,000 times more processing. So again, that could knock some years off of it. So I mean, it could be when he says we're capable of doing it in 10 years. So what he means is we'll optimize the software. We'll do it distributed computing over like we might have a computing grid of distributed computing over the internet. Currently we're doing it for things like protein folding and problems like that are being solved on people's desktops when they're idle via the internet. So it could be that you could get a laptop to model one neuron and then everyone's laptops in the world, but again, that's still not 100 billion. So you see what I'm saying? Like, but it could be that you might get a laptop that's capable of modeling 100 neurons. So I see what you're saying, but yeah, I think that they're just a little bit over-optimistic. Again, when you're predicting the future, this isn't exact. This isn't scientific, like the first part of the talk I gave. This is speculation. But I think that people are underestimating the complexity of the human brain. That's my sort of gut feeling.
I've got a layman's question.
Yeah.
When we look at the human brain, we look at a stress reaction that could be caused by me getting, I don't know, my wages missed out my bank account.
Right.
Causing raised blood pressure, raised, I don't know, adrenaline, whatever you call it.
Okay, yeah.
How much are we looking at pure consciousness versus the whole physical control that the brain has, which is very hard to divorce from the physical?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things is when people talk about the brain and they say, oh, it's all in your brain, I'm like, it's all in your brain, which is in your body, which is interacting in a social environment. So there are some people in AI that say, you can't just make a pure artificial intelligence, it needs to be embodied and it needs to be able to interact and learn from the environment. Unless you're going to model that as well, which is orders of magnitude more complicated. So it would make more sense to try and get Honda to make you a robot body, and I bet they can make a bloody good robot in 2040. To go with this, perhaps its brain would have to be connected wirelessly because the brain would be bigger than the head of the robot or something. It might be a bank of supercomputers and a robot this big.
So if it takes on a project that's too big for its brain or for its comprehension, it's motivated to learn by the fact that one of its servos shuts down, which is what, for example, happened to a human. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that humans have to learn from feedback from the environment.
Also from our own bodies, which is important.
Tom, do you have any more slides?
One more slide to show you, which
so let's get on the conclusion, then we can have
this is it, and I'll have the questions around, okay? I have one more slide to show you, which is, if we made an AGI that was a model of the human brain, and it was perfect, what do you think it'd be like when we turned it on? It'd be like one of these, okay? So let's say we build one of these AGIs in 2025, which is more optimistic than my prediction, by spending billions of dollars on it, and then they're like, great, we've got artificial intelligence, what's it doing? Well, it's doing the artificial intelligence equivalent of dribbling, and...
but it will presumably learn a lot faster than a little baby.
Well, the first one wouldn't, because the first one presumably will be operating at a regular speed of human being. Now, obviously, if Moore's law continues to increase processing, or we continue to spend more on it, you might get something that would go faster.
But your assumptions on dates depends on imagining that we are going to try and simulate the brain.
Oh yeah, sure.
That, there may be other ways.
Oh yeah, there could be other ways, definitely. That was all the cute robot pictures I showed earlier with the other ways. This is the human brain simulation. If you simulate the human brain, you turn it on, it's going to be like one of these. So you'd need to nurture it and interact with it and teach it language. Like if you made a model of the human brain and it's like the human brain, that's what it would be like. Now you could say we could make one that would be faster, but then it would be too fast for us to interact with. If you had a baby that's running at 10 times normal speed, you wouldn't be able to give it the interaction and stimulation that it needed in order to develop. Children that have been severely neglected get developmental disabilities. So a model of the human brain to try and get it to be conscious, we'd need to treat like a proper human, and it probably need a little robot body made by Honda or something as well. But you're right, there may be...
It is a great final picture.
Yeah. Yeah.
So